Hi, I'm Dr. Khurram Shaukat Yusufzai. Today's video is about the tragedy of Pakistan International Airline flight PK-8303 from Lahore to Karachi, which crashed just before the landing. We are going to analyze the factors which contributed to the crash. So let's begin.
Island, 25 left.
Negative, turn left heading 180.
Sir, we are established on Island, 25 left.
So you are 5 miles from touchdown, distance passing 3,500. Clear line 25 left.
Roger, Pakistan 8303. Going around.
Report reaching altitude 3,500 feet.
For Pakistan 8303, we would like to come again for ILS 25 left.
Roger, turn left heading 110, climb 3,000.
Left heading confirm.
From left heading 110, climb 3,000.
110, climb 3000, Pakistan 8303.
You are jumping altitude 2,000.
Sir, we have just give me 2000.
So maintain 2,000. Most rally showing 1800 feet at descent.
Copied, sir. We are now trying to maintain, sir.
On 8303 approach.
Yes, sir.
Appears to be turning left.
While proceeding back, sir, we have lost engines.
Confirm you are carrying out belly landing. Runway available to land at 25.
Roger. Clear, Mayday, Pakistan 8303.
Pakistan 8303, roger sir, both runways available to land.
The role of civil aviation is very high in contributing to the crash of PK-8303 of Pakistan International Airlines, because civil aviation controls the approach to the runway. As the flight was too high, it was flying at 10,000 feet instead of 2,000 feet where it was supposed to be. Because of the height, the pilot had to dive down, and the steep angle of the aircraft while diving down contributed to a very high speed. And because of the very high speed, the gears or the wheels of the aircraft did not open. In other countries apart from Pakistan, when the approach of the aircraft is not good and there is error, the aircraft tower asks the pilot to have a go around, a circle around the airport, so that the pilot can lose height, as well as also observe if the landing gear of that aircraft is deployed or not. But this captain, because he had so much experience, about 18,000 hours, he was overconfident, and because of his overconfidence, he thought by opening up the flaps and also diving at this angle, he could control the aircraft. While he forgot that the aircraft capabilities that above 250 or 60 knots, the wheels of the aircraft would not open because of the high speed. There is an inbuilt mechanism which does not allow the wheels to open. So that may be one of the reasons contributing to the wheels not opening in the first approach. As you can see, in the second approach, the wheels were open, and because of the open wheels, the aircraft stalled. So civil aviation is to blame in this incident because it allowed the captain to land. It should have refused the landing and it could have saved so many lives. It was so simple. And civil aviation of Pakistan is to be blamed for this. And the people in the civil aviation should be punished, not just the aircraft towers, but the whole administration of the Pakistan civil aviation has to be changed.
The blue line shows the approach profile of the PK-8303 of Pakistan International Airlines, and the red line shows the approach profile of any aircraft which is landing at the Jinnah International Airport. As you can see, PK-8303 was at 10,000 feet, while the normal aircraft approaches at this same position at 2,000 feet. And because of this great difference in height, it created problem for the aircraft as it had to dive down towards the runway at a steep angle, and because of this the aircraft attained a very high speed. The high speed attained by the aircraft was in excess of 200 knots, and this is shown by this different figure where the red line shows the speed of the aircraft and the blue line shows the height of the aircraft. So basically at the landing site, the aircraft was traveling in excess of 200 knots. Maybe it was more than 260 knots, because at 250 and 60 knots the wheels of the aircraft does not open, which is a safety mechanism built in the aircraft systems of the Airbus A320 in order to avoid damage to the undercarriage, because such high speed landing can damage the undercarriage and cause an accident. Because of this, many airports don't allow such landings, and the ATC committed a mistake by allowing the PK-8303 to land directly. It should have asked him to go around, although the pilots were saying they are comfortable, but they should have forbidden it.
Another role of the civil aviation or the aircraft control tower is that when it saw the aircraft coming down on the first approach and doing belly landing, it gave the pilot a 110 degree left hand turn. It gave the permission for a left turn and 110 degrees, which is which is a longer way towards reaching the other end of the runway. It should have not given the 110 degree. It should have given him a shorter route, because after the belly landing it was obvious the aircraft would not be making a longer journey because the engine were damaged by touching and scraping the runway. So this was a big blunder which was done by the civil aviation aircraft tower occupants, and they have to answer for this blunder.
Similar accident happened in 1986 when a Boeing 747 landed in a similar way without its undercarriage open, but the landing of the aircraft and the good performance of the crew saved the passengers, and then an SOP was created allowing the civil aviation of Pakistan and the airports to observe the aircraft. So if the ATC would confirm that the undercarriage is open, then the aircraft would be allowed to land. But in this case, the SOP was violated. In the 1986, the cabin crew was awarded rewards because they saved so many lives, and the SOP created was forgotten. As you can see, after the aircraft touchdown and scraping its engine, the aircraft took off from the runway for a second approach to the Karachi International Airport. So in the blue circle, a plane spotter caught the plane. As you can see, there are blackened marks underneath the both engines, which is evidence that it scraped the runway, and there is white smoke coming from the engine. It means the left engine is at least functioning, producing little bit power, but the right engine, there is no smoke. Then at point B, the plane spotter, which was in the blue circle, took a second picture. The second picture shows the position of the aircraft as it had turned left and was approaching the 25L runway. So at point B, a second picture shows the aircraft. So the smoke is not visible, but the aircraft is in the air, probably at 1800 to 2000 feet, and it's trying to reach the end of the runway for the second approach to happen. Then at point C, after it reaches there, it turns left and then it is trying to reach the runway. Third picture taken by the plane spotter, which show the position of the aircraft. Clearly you would see the engines blackened from below, and there is a ramjet deployed underneath the belly. As you can see, the black engines shows the scraping which has occurred because of the friction with the runway, and the damage is seen. The underneath, the metallic part is totally scrapped off. So the ramjet is providing the electrical power because the engines are now stopped and they're producing hot smoke instead of the power. This is right before the pilot opens up the landing gear while gliding through the air. Out of the 91 passengers and the 8 crew, there were 2 survivors, and the 2 survivors told us the stories. But Pakistan International Airlines has a good safety record, and it maintains its aircraft very well. It is the best airline in Pakistan if you compare it with the rest of the 3 airlines, and it has a good safety record. The Airbus aircraft was pretty new, just 10 years old, 10 to 15 years old, and it was well maintained, and it performed well. The safety rating for Pakistan International Airlines is 6 out of 7, although the product rating is 3 out of 7, which is a bit lower, but the safety and operations of the PIA is above average and good. If you look at the data of Pakistan has got 3 airlines, so PIA is 6 out of 7 in the safety rating, while the Air Blue is just 4 out of 7. Similar is case of Shaheen Airline, which is 4 out of 7, and it's not IOSA certified, the other airlines.
PIA management is run by the Air Force. Like, the people in uniform has practically taken over the Pakistan International Airline, and they have no idea of how to run commercial organization. The only method for them is actually to do it with a stick, and that's how they were actually running PIA. They had implemented Essential Services Act that was putting a lot of pressure on the pilots, because if you do not perform the duty, you would be fired. You cannot refuse the duty, and the management can just fire you from a job by this law. Although PIA is not a government entity anymore, because in 2016 the Pakistan International Airline became a public limited company. Before it was a corporation. Corporation means a government run entity, but after it became the corporation, it's the government only retains more than 51% of shares. So the government runs it because it has 51% share. The rest of the share belongs to the people. So it has sort of a semi-private entity right now. But the appointment of the higher management in uniform is a bit strange, because uniformed people are supposed to be the Army and the Air Force and the Navy. So running a public limited company is very strange and weird sort of management. And in that weird sort of management, the pilots and the cabin crew were operating. And the salaries of the cabin crew is the lowest in Asia and in the world of Pakistan International Airline. Some of the salaries of the cabin crew is like 40,000 Pak rupees, which is maybe like $200 or $300 a month. And although they are performing their duty well, but they are performing it under the stress to take care of their families. And the captain was a family man, and he had to take care of his family. He had kids. And then because of the corona situation, PIA had applied the Essential Services Act. The Essential Services Act was sort of a stressful thing. The PALPA, Union of the Pilots, had gone to the courts, and there are presumably, according to reports, more than 100 courts in the different, Karachi, Lahore, Peshawar, and Islamabad high courts against the PIA by the employees of the Pakistan International Airline. And the violation of SOPs and other laws and rules regulation is very common. And the role of civil aviation is also very weak in Pakistan, because it does not perform any audit or checks and balances. And the Pakistan International, since it's the only airline, the other airlines are very small, and they do not have a management structure like PIA. So the Pakistan aviation sector is practically controlled by the Pakistan International Airline, and the other two airlines are not even IOSA certified. Only PIA is IOSA certified, although it has a good safety record, but it has a very bad management and marketing profile. Airbus makes very wonderful aircraft, and they are pretty safe, and with A320 is one of the best seller, and it has performed very well. Even in this circumstances, it was it looked like completely normal, and it landed on its belly, and it was able to take off again, and then it had a go around, and then it almost reached to the end of runway before crashing. So I'll show you the structure of CFM 56 engine, which is installed in Airbus. So the underneath this engine is the mechanism which provides the lubrication and oil to the engine to make it function. So after being damaged, the aircraft engine stopped.
The Airbus Industries is very famous, and the A320 is a very hit aircraft. It's pretty safe, and the engines in the Airbus A320 is CFM 56 engines, which are pretty reliable, and they have clocked millions of miles, and their performance is really good because these engines are fitted in Airbus A320 as well as Boeing 737. But after the engines were scrapped on the runway, as you can see by the red marks, at 4500, 5500, and then from 6000 to 7000 feet by both engines, and then at 9500 feet by the right engine, they damaged the aircraft. And as from the pictures you can see, on the inspection of the runway, the friction blacked scrape marks of the engines rubbing with the runway damaged the engines, and it resulted in the damage to the lower part where there is mechanism for lubrication as well as the fuel line connections. So as you can see, this is the engine CFM 56, and it's a pretty unique and good machinery which has been proved and reliable. It's the metallic, under the metallic cover is the engine, and as you can see, the underneath the metallic cover, this was the area which scrapped the runway. And the engine components are so near to that metallic cover, as you can see, and you can see the fuel lines and the lubrication lines position. So while touching the runway, this exact point was damaged, and it resulted in incapacitating the engine. So without the fuel and the lubrication, the engines are supposed to stop and flame out, and this is exactly what happened in the mid-air. Although the blades of the engines were found intact, meaning they were not rotating when the engine hit the ground, which is another evidence that the engines had stopped in the mid-air just before the second approach. As you can see here, underneath all these intricate small pipes which carries the lubrication as well as the fuel for the jet engines. These are the blades of the CFM 56 turbine jet engine. If the engine is rotating while the aircraft crashes, these blades get broken up. But in the case of PK-8303, both the blades were found intact. Now, if you talk about the landing gear opens up via gravity. After the doors open and the hydraulic system allow it to be released, then the wheels open up with the gravity and they are locked into position. This is the switch of the landing gear. If you pull it down, there is an arrow with illumination red color which shows that the landing gear is down. So when you pull down this switch, the undercarriage wheels open up, allowing the aircraft to land, and the red arrow lights up. The flight crew, when operates the landing gear, there are some mechanism in the Airbus, like for example, if it is traveling above 260 knot, or maybe there is too much mileage on the aircraft, or some other things, because the landing gear system is connected with the aircraft system. These are the three switches, as you can see, a middle one for the front undercarriage wheel, and the left one for the left undercarriage, and the right one for the right undercarriage. So as shown by the figure before, if you are traveling at above 260 knots, the aircraft won't allow the wheels to open up. This is the ECAM wheel page. As you can see that the the position of the wheels as well as in the locking position by the triangles are shown, which turn green color. So it means that the wheels are in open position and they are locked. This is the switch which is used for the gravity gear extension. You release the safety lever, and then you turn this 3 times clockwise. It will open up the wheels if by some reason they are not opening up. This is the funnel approach shown of the airport. The civil aviation are responsible for taking care of this funnel. As you can see that there's so many high-rise buildings are near the airport of Karachi, which is a violation because in the 15 nautical mile area there shouldn't be high-rise buildings.
The civil aviation of Pakistan also contributed to the crash because of allowing so many high-rise buildings and constructions in the funnel area of the airport. Because the funnel area of the airport is the funnel shaped area which touches the runway, as I will show you in the diagram, that when the aircraft is landing or taking off, the aircraft can use this funnel area for emergency landings and takeoff. So any building or any structure in that area can damage the aircraft, and also the occupants of that building can be injured or death can occur. Most of the airports in Pakistan does not comply with these safety regulations, and it is a high time that the civil aviation of Pakistan should be punished for allowing so many illegal construction in this funnel area. And if that 3-story building was not present over there, maybe many lives of the passengers would have been saved. So in order to prevent this, the strict SOPs and demolition of such buildings should be done, and any people who live there should be heavily taxed so that they would not buy or sell property there. So a suggestion would be to have 3 times the normal tax in that area, so that the people should move away and build their homes and shops away from that funnel area. Pakistan International Airlines has been plagued by corruption and mismanagement. The real employees of the Pakistan International Airline are highly oppressed and harassed because when the political government comes, they appoint incompetent and managers of PIA who have no idea of running the aviation, and their only purpose of running PIA is to do corruption. So the employees of PIA who are serving there for like 10 years or 20 years, they are not given promotions, they are not trained, and they are harassed. And it was a corona season, and because of the corona, the pilots refused to perform their duties. So the Pakistan International Airline, instead of providing them PPE, personal protective equipment, they hired retired pilots, and they were running the show during the corona season, which put a lot of pressure on the pilot union PALPA, and they struck a deal with the management after they agreed to provide the personal protective equipment. So the pilots were performing duties, but many pilots had tested positive for corona, and they were really worried about their life. So the captain operating the flight was no exception, because he was a family man and he was a human being.
Captain Sajjad Gul was the commanding officer of this PK-8303, and he was a family man, and his wife was also cabin crew in the Pakistan International Airline like him, and he was committed family man, and he had 17 to 18,000 hours on the Airbus A320, and he was very experienced pilot, and to commit a mistake is difficult to imagine for such an experienced captain. His first officer was Osman Azam. Osman Azam had 5,000 hours, and he was capable of flying the A320, and most of the radio communication was done by Osman Azam, according to reliable information. The cabin crew of the PK-8303 was never informed to perform emergency procedures while in the first approach, and no mayday was declared, according to the two witnesses, the two passengers who survived. So they did not perform any emergency procedures, as required to tell the passengers. The cabin crew did not do it as the captain did not ask him. This was confirmed by the survivors. So Asma Shahzadi was a cabin crew on the ill-fated flight. Then the pictures of the other cabin crew who were on the ill-fated flight. They were based in Lahore, and they used to fly from Lahore International Airlines, Lahore International Airport. Anam Khan was the cabin crew who was changed in the last minute, and she replaced another cabin crew, Miss Madiha. She was not supposed to be on this flight, but her roster was changed and she went to Karachi on PK-8303. So the cabin crew performed the emergency procedure on the second approach. They asked the passenger to brace themselves for a belly landing, and some of the passengers were wearing the oxygen mask, as told by Mr. Zubair, an engineer by profession who survived miraculously, and he was one of the two. So he told the TV reporters and the people that they did not feel anything on the first approach, and it seemed like a smooth landing apart from 4-5 jolts as the engines touched the runway. The other lucky guy was president of the Punjab Bank, and he's the son of a famous actor in Pakistan. His name is Zafar Masood, and he also survived the crash apart from a fracture. Thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you will subscribe to my channel by pressing the subscribe button and also pressing the bell icon, and I hope to see you again for exciting videos. Thank you very much. Bye bye.